make sure that we equip ourselves with this knowledge so that when it comes to the disposition of the asset, you are able to do it, right? Number one. Number two, when you have minor children, I cannot stress enough that the importance of having your will or wasiat instrument in place, yeah, because that document will help to appoint the guardian of your children, especially when both parents are no longer around. So I think that is one of the biggest responsibility that every woman who is a mother who has a child, to make sure that this provision is being mentioned in your document. Thirdly, of course, if you have specific needs, yeah, if you have special provision, right, or even if you want to take care of your aging parents, and like I said, you can't pre-time that. What if you go first, right, and your parents are still around, and this is where a trust is one of the tools that you may want to consider to ensure that your wishes in ensuring your children's welfare, your parents' welfare can be taken care of financially through these tools.
Yeah, I think the key messaging here that needs to be emphasized is the fact that it's a case of self-sufficiency. And a lot of us, so I know a lot of divorced ladies who still go back to their husbands, ex-husbands, and say, can you please do my tax filing for me? Because I have no idea what to do. So in fact, there's a lot of surveys and research reports that talks about how women ourselves, 90% of us leave all financial decision making to the men. So it can be the ex-husbands, the brothers, the fathers, and whatnot. This is why it's important for us to equip ourselves with the right knowledge and figure out how much it costs. So Fazlina, you were talking about the fact that a trust could be a possibility for you to consider, especially if you're thinking that, hey, you suddenly get sick or whatever. How much would it cost for a normal person to set up a trust? And what are the running costs associated with it?
Okay, so because if I can just give you an analogy how a trust works, just imagine a trust like a Sendirian Berhad company. So analogy, yeah? And because it behaves like a company, which means from regulatory point of view, you got to be taxed. Okay, number one. Number two, because it behaves like a company, again, analogy, yeah, just to make sure that you understand the concept how it works, you gotta have cash flow because you need to sustain it during the trust period, right? If let's say you want to set up a trust for the period of 30 years, ensure the trust is sustainable during that trust period. So when I say sustainable here, which means you need to have some liquid asset inside there. You need to ensure that whatever expenses that are incurred during the trust period can be taken care from the trust fund itself. Because there's no point of you setting up a structure where during your lifetime you still want us, the trustee, to go back to you and ask for our fees or pay the tax fee. It doesn't work that way, right? You want, when you set up a structure, you want to make sure that when you set up today, if anything happens to you tomorrow, the trustee will be able to step into your shoe right away, right? Now, in doing that, of course, there will always be a cost involved, yeah? And I totally understand cost is always a factor of not just Malaysian, everybody lah. That whatever that you do, whenever you engage a service provider, there's a fees to be paid, right? So therefore, from Maybank trustee perspective, of course, we set up a trust for our client, and the cost can range from 8,000 onwards, depending on the size of your asset, depending on the complexity of your asset, as well as the complexity of your situation. Because I don't want to have a cookie cutter and cut, because every family dynamic is different, right? Family has different circumstances, different needs. So as far as cost is concerned, Regina, it's from 8,000 onwards. Yearly, you're looking about 7,000 per annum.
Okay, so 15 grand lah, 15 grand. So 15,000 just for the administrative cost, right? How much money do I need? How much assets for a trust to be set up? Because if I say I only have 250,000, not worth it lah, right? So how much?
So the minimum, I would say 500,000.
Okay, so the key here is to have $500,000 lah.
If let's say you know that it is important for you to have one, okay, and if you were to engage professional like us, of course that's those fees that you pay. In doing so, from the law perspective, you can also appoint an individual to become your trustee, right? So that is an alternative. However, you got to weigh the pros and cons when you appoint an individual trustee versus a corporate trustee. Because individual dies, corporate don't. Right? So again, weigh your situation. Happy to discuss, but at the end of the day, yes, cost does matter, but it has to commensurate with the issues that you are facing at the moment.
Okay, Nina, you've got a question. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not taking over. Just crossed my mind. We're always talking about women, and we're just talking about women who are at a certain income level. But what about a woman who's going through a divorce and she has a business, and she says she wants to set up some form of trust to protect her family, herself, her family, and all that? Would the cost be the same, or is it going to be different?
I have to put a disclaimer there. I have lawyers around here as well. Whenever you have a divorce proceeding, the situation is slightly different, simply because you treat divorce like another creditor. Yeah. So again, come back to the principle of a trust. People set up a trust for asset protection and subsequently succession planning. Now, when you set up a trust, you have to make sure that you are in good faith when doing so. Right? So, if you know that you're going to get divorced in the next couple of months, and suddenly you come to me today and you want to set up a trust, then your trust the tool is it will be in a vulnerable position, right? And again, you don't want to do something, or you don't want to plan something after spending so much of money, and it's bound to be attacked by any creditors. You just don't talk about your spouse, but any other people as well.
Is there a timeline? So you say 3 months tak boleh, but if I say next year boleh?
So like I said, go back to your intention, Regina. At the point when you
wealth
set up
preservation,
trust, right? At the point when you set up, you are in good faith when you're doing it. So we go back to the bankruptcy rule, right? Whatever that you do, after 5 years, your trust is a creditor protected tool.
5 years.
5 years. 5 years. Full 5 years. So the first 2 years is the vulnerability period, where anybody can attack, right? And the court can overturn it. But after that, again, the honor goes back to the creditors to prove that the person is, has the intention to defraud the spouse, right?
Very hot topic, huh? Especially the lawyers.
There's so many questions inside here,
Yeah.
especially as the validity of the trust in aspect if I die. Does it is it challengeable in Fraid? That's one.
It's
Two,
challengeable.
as to Fraid.
Is it charitable?
Faraid.
Charitable.
Intestacy laws, okay, for Muslims to create a trust, whether that will go into the estate or can it be considered as a non-attackable, non-challengeable situation. But when you say about just now, I was thinking about the clawing back. Yeah, I have created a trust, right? If something happens to me, i.e., I became a bankrupt. Now, the insolvency department can come and claw back into that to pay my creditors. Alright? So is it 3 years or 5 years? I thought it's 3 years. I'm currently doing one insolvency for discharge. Right. So I was thinking it's 3 years.
It's fine, because they want people to use it for the wrong reason. So it was changed.
It was changed.
It was changed. Yeah.
Okay.
So answering to your first question, as you know, Faraid laws come into play when you pass on. That's the Islamic inheritance law. When you set up a trust, you transfer your asset during your lifetime. You're gifting it into a trust during your lifetime. So whatever assets, like today I have 10,000 ringgit and I want to put that 10,000 ringgit into a trust structure, I must physically transfer that 10,000 ringgit to the trustee. Okay? The moment I do that, right, that 10,000 will not form part of my harta pusaka, which means it will not bound by the Faraid ruling. Clear?
It is not bound by Faraid once it's proper, the 5 years and all that sorted out lah. That's what you're saying, right?
No. Okay, hold on. If you want to set up a trust, if you have 10,000 ringgit, you want to put it into a trust. Yeah?
That 10,000 is no
Okay.
longer.
So, like I said, you must legally transfer that 10,000 ringgit to the trustee. So, when you have legally transferred to the trustee, legally does that 10,000 belong to you?
No.
So, because of that, the moment you pass on, when you pass on, that 10,000 will not form part of your inheritance. Because it's no longer in your name. Because you have gifted it during your lifetime into a trust.
Sorry, lawyers will always look into the details and the 5 steps, 10 steps ahead. Sorry. Okay, you say, when I created a trust to the trustee company, so once it's done, it's deemed not mine. It's deemed yours, so it will not fall into the estate, Muslim estates, right? Okay. Now, when I created the trust, who are the beneficiaries of that trust?
It can be anybody.
What if it is for me and the children?
So the trust is set up now, right?
Right.
So the trust is meant, so under normal circumstances, and mostly in Malaysia or even worldwide, a lot of family members these days, they set up a trust to provide for themselves during their lifetime, during their incapacitation,
Yes.
and of course after lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah. So when a person set up a trust, you must have 3 things in place. One is the intention, one is the asset, second is the asset, third is the beneficiaries who are going to benefit the asset. So in this case, if you want to benefit during your lifetime, you can do so, but you've got to make sure that you are being named as one of the beneficiaries. Yeah?
Then comes the question again. Would the whole trust, okay, be excused or waived from the estate duty, from the estate Muslim estate laws, assuming the beneficiaries of the trust is like, okay, assuming there's 5 of them, 4, 1 is myself. So is it going to be given equal shares, or is it whatever? It could be 90%, 10%. Then if that comes to me at 90% for the benefit during my lifetime, when I die, would that be subjected to Islamic estate laws?
I'm bringing back to the drawing board again, yeah? During lifetime, you settle the asset into a trust, okay? That asset doesn't belong to you anymore, yeah? So, after you pass, it will not be splitted in accordance to Farai or what? It will be distributed in accordance to the terms as stipulated in the trustee law.
So the key thing here is that the terms of the trust must be very, very clear.
Very, very clear.
Who the beneficiaries are.
Correct.
And that's okay. The intention lah.
Yes.
So if it's very clear that you're trying to deceive anyone, then or ensure that your ex-spouse or whatever doesn't get any of it, that would obviously cause issues legally lah.
So if I can just add to what your concern could be, also another thing is, I'm sure you've heard about hibah, right? So what is hibah actually? Hibah is a gift, right? Go back to the basic of gifting. When you give, you have to give absolutely, right? There's no such thing that give my phone to Lynette, then I, ambil balik, right? So in Malaysia, as you know, the Muslims, we have scholars. We follow the school thoughts of Mazhab Shafi'i, the Shafi'i school of thought. And Shafi'i school of thought says that when you like to do hibah, the taking possession has to be made. So I'm bringing back to the drawing board, the trust concept, where your 10,000, when you transfer into a trust, it doesn't belong to you anymore. So you are fulfilling the rukun hibah as well, the gifting element as well. So which means that 10,000 will not form part of your inheritance. Yeah. So always remember, when a Muslim set up a trust, your intention has to be absolute. It has to be irrevocable. Your asset must be transferred. There's many players out there when they do a trust, it's only by way of declaration. Some people say it's okay, but I've been in this area for more than 20 years. I've seen how a trust document is being pushed back, or rather a dispute happen despite doing the structure, simply because you don't follow the fundamental rule that when you set up a trust, the transfer has to be made.
Okay, I'd like to ask both of you, because you're both having experiences in seeing what mistakes people usually make, right? So I'll start with you first, Fazlina. What are the common mistakes that you've seen from your clients? So apart from not making the terms of the trust clear or whatever, what are the issues that you've seen in regards to your clients planning financially, and what are the lessons that we can share with the audience today so that we don't make the same mistakes?
Assumptions.
Assumption of what?
For example, if you have a joint account with your spouse, or if you have a joint property with your spouse, you think when he passed on, you will get that 50%. It could be that he has an intention of gifting it to the children, right? So
That 50%.
yeah. So clarifying your intention is key here. So this is why documentation is very important. You need to have documents to prove all this.
So even if you pay, so let's say you pay the mortgage, but he owns half of it, you're saying that he could still get away with it?
Yeah, because under the National Land Code, when you pass on, your 50% goes to your estate, doesn't go to your spouse 100%. Yeah, bank account is questionable again. Big debate, even with my own bank, right? So, again, choice of joint survivorship, tenancy in common, different practices, various banks. Yeah, to be on the safe side, make sure you mention it in your will. If let's say you have a joint account, how do you want it to be treated?
Let's just jump in about the joint survivorship. Generally, the best thing is to check with the bank, because I find that foreign banks, they have the survivorship clause, and they tend to follow, means that if one pass away, the other can take over. But local banks are different.
They freeze the asset immediately, right?
Yeah. What they do is they will need to see if it's a demise of spouse, they need to see the grant of probate. That certificate tak cukup, must be a grant of probate, because they do not want to face a situation where they pay out and then after that the survivor, the beneficiaries come back and say no, they have that entitled to it. So that's why they want to see that.
So that's one of the reasons from risk management perspective, the bank immediately freeze the account, notwithstanding it's a joint account. Yeah, it's more of that. So as I said tadi, Regina, I think the common things that people always tend to look at, they think that when you have something joint, it's meant for each other, number one. Number two, I must say this procrastination is something that has to stop. Correct, in it. And also because unlike investment, you could see the fruition immediately, right? But when doing a wealth distribution planning, you cannot see now. You are already eyes wide shut, reading, right? So how do you ensure that, and you don't have control, right? So in the time where now you have the control, make full use of it, and plan as much as you can. And of course, Wahini has
Our vault.
good vault. Make full use of that, because again, based on my practice, the moment when we pass on, right, all of our assets are frozen. Yeah. Now, to unfreeze that, you have to have the list of assets and liabilities, right? So, if you hear, apart from feuds among the family members, one of the major issue as to why your estate administration, your harta pusaka, pentadbiran harta pusaka berterusan bertahun-tahun is because you don't know where your information of your assets, and worse off, some people, they take their will, they put it in a safe deposit box. When in actual fact, safe deposit is an asset, it needs to be frozen, your will is inside there. So again, having a digital wall, I think that really helps in organizing your matters, making sure that whatever assets that you have, you just key in. We are all on our mobile, right? So, it takes less than 30 seconds for you to key in, right? So, I'm a big advocate on people when you want to embark into an estate planning journey. When the basic thing that one must do, I always send back client with this homework. Go back, give me your assets and liability, then you come back to me and you talk about writing a will for us with me. Because otherwise, it's going to be a half-baked journey, and for all you know, you have assets here and there, and because we don't have a system, a unionized system, right? So
Centralized.
correct. We don't have a centralized system in place. So all the more we should make sure that we use digital vault to help us to make sure that we compile our list of assets and liabilities.
Thank you, Fazina. I didn't pay her to say this at all. But just to share with you why we decided with the digital vault was very simple. When I had to go and sort out my sister's estate, she was sick for many, many years. And still it took us a long time for us to figure out what was what, right? Because it's common, we all know that we're going to die eventually, but none of us, if you were to ask most people, where do you keep your information, most people don't have that Excel spreadsheet. I had, and I kept giving my husband and my daughter a list whenever I travel, but they don't know where they kept it, right? So which is why a digital vault is very important. So I'm not trying to push it so much, but it was a practical reason, and the reason why we organized it between 9 assets and 5 liabilities, because those were the key things that the lawyers asked me. You know, these are the things that you need to have, otherwise we can't sort out anything for you. So let's move on to Lynette. And Lynette, so what are the mistakes that you've seen as a financial planner? And you know, you have also gone through a divorce. What are the key lessons that you wish someone had told you earlier?
The common mistakes I see is the assumption, as you rightly say, that when I divorce, I have a right to alimony, my husband will pay me, and my husband will pay me the child maintenance. Legally, that is so true. But actually, you'll find that some not so nice ex-spouse, when he loves you, will give you the whole world, the moon, the sun, the sky. But when love is no longer there, nothing is going to give you. And when that nothing happens and you didn't plan for it, that's when you run into trouble. That's why we have this session to talk about finances. And even if you want to provide and you want to secure that and build a trust, you still need that finances in place. I also want to connect this to the session 2, where Betty said that whatever receipt, whatever documents you have, you need to make sure you have it, put it aside, because that's where you need it. And not only for estate planning, but also when you want to go to court also, just now the lawyer said already, we need all these documents. So I think that's very important. Common mistake.
Well, it's very, very clear. You know, I think we like to assume that things are hunky-dory and it will always be hunky-dory, right? But that's not the case. So apart from the common mistakes, right? What would be your advice in regards to long-term financial solutions apart from trust? Because not everyone can afford to have a trust. So what would you do? I mean, if you were just a normal person earning, you know, less than 10,000 ringgit a month, which is the common salary right now, right? Any advice from Maybank's group?
Okay. Yeah, because not everybody can afford, right?
Yeah.
And to set up one, maybe one time off people can pay, but to sustain it, you need funds for that, right? So, number one, I think go back to what Violet has said, and you have mentioned plan, budgeting. I think that's very crucial. That's number one. Number two, of course, when you talk about wealth management cycle, you plan, you grow, you accumulate, and then that's where you come on the protection and followed by distribution, right? So when it comes to protection, this is where Violet earlier mentioned on insurance, Takaful, even Lynette mentioned that. I think I'm a big believer of insurance and Takaful. It really gives you the liquidity, because let's face this, yeah, Malaysian generally, we love buying properties for investment, but we don't see the importance of having cash flow on the side, right? Yes, I mean, gone were the days where property gives those sort of yield, right? And go back to the basic where people say cash is king. It is king, yeah? So just look back during COVID, nothing can move. If you don't have that liquidity, you're just stuck. I had a client, if I can just share, during COVID, he was one of those got contracted early March, April. He was medically induced to coma, had business. Of course, the wife came to us and said that, first, I need to pay money, salaries, and the suppliers to be paid. They all need funds. So the husband is in the hospital, induced coma, can't get into, obviously can't call the bank, can't call the banker. So fortunately he had a trust with us long time back, and we were trying to get some money out from the trust. So under the trust, he has put in some investment portfolio, insurance, and his family home. Now, if you recall, during COVID, the first 2019-20, market was very volatile. Yeah. So even if I were to take money from the investment portfolio, everything was red, right? So as a prudent trustee, that shouldn't be my first choice. So what we did was, we looked at other assets that he had under the trust, to which the insurance policy. And in the insurance policy, as you all know, every year we pay premium for the policies, right? So there's a cash value inside there. So it became a piggy bank, during this hard time. So we took that opportunity and we withdrew sufficient cash from the insurance policy, and we pay out to the family, to the wife, to make the necessary payment. So, moral of the story here is, number one, don't shy away from your insurance agent. Number two, yes, some people, they want to take risks, they go into high investment. Again, high risk, high return, you take that risk. But make sure that you have enough cash flow in place, make sure that you have enough liquidity in place, so that whenever you have this eventuality, you know how to manage it, you know how to take care of it.
Thank you. You want to add on? Yes.
Yes, please. I just want to give you a tip of the day when it comes to, because a lot of questions ask, if I set up a trust and I have to pay fees, eventually will it deplete my money? I got nothing. So that's why financial planning is very important, because one area to make sure that the trust can go on is to have investments. So investments can come in many forms. The returns from the investment is the one that will be able to pay your fees. So that's one way to plan it. Now, what can you invest in? There's so many things, and it pays to diversify. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Balance it as well. So you have unit trust, you have property, you have gold or commodities. There's also ETF. So for unit trust, if you want to know more, there's Maybank outside, there is Kenanga outside. Yeah, there's also Capsphere. Yeah. And then for ETF, if you want to know more about ETF, which is also another investment tool, you can please go ahead, join women in ETF. They do more than just tell you about ETF, because it's about education, it's about women empowerment.
And they also have Stash Away as a member.
Yeah, and the membership is free. They're going to talk to you about how you can manage your money better. So these are things that I think you can use this tool to make sure that your trust carries on.
And of course, don't forget to have your will in place.
Oh yes,
Yeah. There's will, so your will's instrument, your wasiat instrument. It's a must document for everybody, regardless the net worth that you have. Because your will or your wasiat instrument, you've heard about in the movies, we say the last will and testament, right? It is your representation when you have passed on. So you need someone, so during your lifetime, you are there to manage your assets, your liabilities. But when you pass on, you need someone to step into your shoes, to handle your affair post your lifetime. So this is where the appointment of executor through your will or wasiat instrument matters. And last but not least, if you have children, appointment of guardian must be mentioned in your will or wasiat instrument.
Thank you. So I think before we end the session, I'd just like to repeat what are the actionable steps. So that's why we were asking about budgeting, because why is it important is because you want to be able to track how much money you need. You know, so Fazlina and Lynette talked about liquidity. It's hard to talk about investments and figuring out how much you need if you don't know how much you're spending. So I think that's the key. And yes, of course, we've got the digital vault to help you there. But I think the key is to actually understand where you're coming from. So even talking to a financial planner sometimes is hard. Some people say it's very, very hard. Not so much because of understanding your financial health, but it's also the fact that they will be asking you hard questions. You know, to find out that number that you have, what is your magic number on what you can do to like sustain your lifestyle, you're going to have to be very, very honest with yourself. And you don't want to wait until divorce happens before you start having that conversation with yourself. So with that, I'd like to open the floor because I know we've got women's group, we've got women who are lawyers and ex-finance people and all that in this room. So if you want to share your story or whatever, because we do have both Lynette and Sherry sharing their personal stories after this. So please feel free, you know, no judging in this room at all. Thank you.
Is there any question?
You can, if you don't want to ask Canva Live, you can always ask me directly. Yes?
I'm addressing the question to Fazlina. You mentioned about insurance. There's multi-faceted insurance, right? So so far as you say that the insurance you can liquidate it and pay, you know, to whoever that needs it. But this insurance, what is the insurance? What kind of insurance is it?
Generally, it's a life policy, right? Because it can't be a fire insurance policy. No. It has a life policy, or now we have sophisticated insurance that they call savings plan, income plan. So which gives consistent income. Yeah, it's purely life insurance and savings income plan. Usually,
What about endowment?
sorry,
Endowment?
endowment, whatever that has cash value that you can withdraw it during your lifetime.
Okay, that means also, for example, we used to have critical illness, which we can surrender and we get money.
Yeah,
Alright, so that can be entrusted into a trust.
correct.
Thanks.
Can I just add on to, okay, because there's a such thing, there are some people who set up trust, insurance trust, whereby, because what the other common mistake a lot of people make is their insurance, different type of insurance, they put different nomination, or in the case of Takaful, the HIBA. So what happens is then the money goes all over the place. Whereas if you have an insurance trust, and the money is all channeled into that trust, and then that trust you have already put where it's supposed to go and who it's for and what it is for, then it will be properly channeled. And normally what they use is life insurance, term life insurance, critical illness can be in also. So the moment the triggering effect comes in and the payout is there, it straight goes to the trust. Look for her. If you don't know how to plan that, look for me. And then your documents, look for her. Keep it safe so that when anything happens, at least your whatever trust documents, your what all, you can find it easily in the cloud. All right, you're right. Okay. For question, yeah, that's a question.
Because for Fazlina, you just mentioned that it's very important that we do a will. Yeah, walaupun tak banyak, sikit, it's very important to do a will because your probate will be faster than an LA. Okay, your probate will be faster than LA, satu. And not only your point, you were saying tadi, guardian to the children. Because under the Sharia law, if you do not appoint a guardian in your will, any Tom, Dick and Harry from the male lineage, sorry, not any lah, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm a bit crude here. It can, you know, your brother-in-law from your husband's side, kalau brother tak ada, and the grandfather, which I mean sometimes you don't bother about your children, your brother-in-law, your cousin-in-laws from the paternal side, from father's side, they will become the guardian of the children. So if they become the guardian children, I don't know whether they will take into cognition what you desire for your children when you were alive and dead. That's the legal aspect, which is very important.
You're getting free advice here. Very important. Yeah, it's very important. And also, when you have named someone as the guardian, make sure you have that conversation with that person. Yeah? Because they are not duty bound to follow, you know. So, for all you know, suddenly, they are actually, they don't want to be the guardian of your children. Because it's not easy. Yeah? You're taking, you know, a parent's responsibility you have to carry out. You know, not everybody, and you would assume that your family member would want to step in. For all you know, they wouldn't want because they have their own families, they have their own obligations. So the conversation, you know, must be taken place before you appoint someone in your document.
There are two questions on the board. Do we have time to answer?
Yeah, we have time, so let's...
Shall I read it for you? It's easier first and better. So the first question is, will wasiat or will is important, but can the will or wasiat be contested and eventually your assets undergo farayat? Okay, that's one question.
I think perhaps we need Dato' to actually say.
Maybe we ask the second question is kind of related.
Yeah, but yeah, go on.
It's mentioned that assets will no longer be ours once we transfer them to trust. Are there any restrictions for us to use the asset or funds when
While
we're
we're
still
still
alive? Okay, two questions.
Okay, so the first question I like to highlight, for Muslims, you can only wasiat 30% of your assets. So that's a must. Kan? 1/3, yeah, 33%, sorry. So you cannot will everything away, and two, you cannot will it away to people who are under faraid. So you cannot give it to your children who are already covered under faraid. So those are the natural heirs. That's one of the things that you need to worry about. Anyone else want to add on?
So, if I were to add what Regina has said, for Muslims, everything stops the moment we pass on, except for your good charity. Doa anak ya soleh, your charity to be continued. You know, when you have your charity, it will be continued after your lifetime. So, that is the reason why Muslims are encouraged to write a wasiat to ensure your deed, your continued deeds continue, your charity continues after your lifetime, to which the provision of up to 1/3 is being mentioned in the Quran. So you don't want to also do injustice to your waris. That is why, you know, to ensure your continuity of your good deeds, will only can go up to 1/3. Yeah, the balance of the 1/3. So again, analogy. If I have 300,000, I can will up to 100,000 to my anak yatim or my non-ex. Yeah, and yeah. So the thing is, the balance of the money, the 2/3, the 200. So assuming if I were to give out 100,000, the balance 200,000 will be shared among my waris faraid. Yeah, and in that case, whether they want to follow as per the faraid calculation, whether they want to give 100% absolutely to my son, for example, or whether they want to adhere to my pesanan in my wasiat instrument, it's entirely up to the waris. Yeah, failing which, this is where the faraid calculation behave like a dispute resolution. When nobody agrees, this is where the faraid calculation comes into play. So I think there's a misconception of faraid calculation here, that the moment you pass on, everything will be distributed in accordance with faraid. But the very fact that people should go and read up why the faraid law is being done in that manner, right? So simple answer to this, faraid calculation behaves like a dispute resolution. Yeah. So I've answered the first question. Second question, for as long as you are a beneficiary of the trust, and you can again go back to the terms of your trust, subject to the terms of the trust, you can still enjoy whatever that you've put into a trust. So for example, you've transferred an investment portfolio. In that investment portfolio, there's stocks that gives dividend. So during your lifetime, you want to enjoy the dividend. Yeah. So as one of the beneficiaries of the trust, the trustee will have to exercise their powers, as their discretionary powers, to allow for such distribution to be made to you during your lifetime.
Can I just quickly add on? All right. So I'm just going to mention some some technical terms, and I will explain. When a trust is set up, there are two types of beneficiaries. One is they call it income beneficiary. That will answer this question, because income beneficiaries means even if you put your name in that trust, you will be able to enjoy the income from it. Now the other beneficiary, because some trust has got an end date, and when it ends, then whoever is named as the capital beneficiary will benefit from it. So when you set up a trust, you must have an name your income beneficiary and name your capital beneficiary. Is that right? Okay. Back to you.
So yeah, before we leave and end this session, I'd also like to highlight that with the Muslim wasiat, you can only will it away to a fellow Muslim. So which can also be a cause of issue if you are, you've got interracial marriages and stuff like that. So these are just for your background information. Any other questions from the floor? No? Okay, so if there's no other questions, we're going to end this session, and that's it. Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause to my panelists here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And of course, thank you so much for the sponsors for the day, which are Maybank Trustees, Kenanga Investors Berhad, we've also got Mula Advisory, and Women in ETFs. So, and of course Capsphere, that's also been very good in supporting us. And this whole event is also supported by MDEC. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much to our esteemed speakers. Before you all leave the stage, I'd like to invite Regina to present a certificate of appreciation and have a photo taken.
Boleh.
Thank you very much to all our panelists and moderators. I'm sure we'll agree it's been a very insightful forum. So we'll be drawing to a close soon. But before that, I just wanted to highlight on the projector there will be another QR code that is displayed there. And this QR code will basically give you a divorce checklist, which is a list of things for you to consider or steps you might want to take if you are going through this process. The code will also give you a link to all the presentations